man, I can remember the hunt for this elk like it was yesterday. It may not look like much of an elk to some, but I'll tell you what, this elk means more to me than 90% of the elk on my wall. In fact, this was the very first elk hunt, the very first successful elk hunt I was ever on. I was 12 years old. The anticipation of this hunt, I can remember, this was big time for me. I'll just never forget that anticipation of, it was cold out. And Dad and George were drinking coffee, and Levi and I in the back seat and heading out. And I'll never forget, even my dad was eating a cinnamon roll. I can remember the smell of that cinnamon roll that morning as we headed out in the pitch black before daylight, opening day of Montana's rifle season. This elk is where it all started for me. That morning, as daylight broke, sure enough, we could see the flashes of elk bodies coming through the timber, and we could tell they were going to come into an opening, and just like clockwork they did. This was the only legal bull in the bunch, and Dad and George waited for Levi and I to get on this bull, and we had all the opportunity, but I think we were nervous. It was, we wanted it to be perfect. We wanted it to be standing perfectly broadside, nothing behind it. We wanted to make sure that crosshair was dead on where we needed it to be before we pulled the trigger. At that point, we hadn't really had a chance to fine-tune those skills yet, so it didn't come as fast to us. Needless to say, the bull turned to run over the hill, and my dad fired one shot, hitting the bull perfect and knocking him down. And, I knew even then, at 12 years old, I knew why Dad took that bull. I knew it was the smallest bull he had ever shot in his life, but it wasn't about that, and hunting isn't about that. He knew that was about that experience, the first elk hunt, the first bull elk I had ever put my hands on in my entire life. The feeling of its hair, looking at its hoof, the textures of its antlers, soaking it all in for the first time, the smell, even the smell. This elk, I can remember everything about this elk, gutting him out. Exactly how he laid, a stump above him, a big boulder below him, the view from there. It's amazing how that's been ingrained in my brain. And it all started with this elk. This year, my dad, Tim, drew a coveted elk tag here in the state of Montana, giving him the chance at possibly the biggest bull he's ever taken. My dad's been having some heart problems this year, so it was really nice to have a spot where we could take him to hunt where the terrain was fairly mellow and where the hunting pressure was fairly low due to the small number of elk tags that are given out in this area. Dad had a chance this year of taking a real quality bull.
Into High Country has been brought to you by Vortex Optics, the force of optics. Archer Extreme, there can only be one. Onyx Maps, hunt with confidence. Sitka Gear, specialized outdoor wear and equipment. Mystery Ranch, backpacks built from experience. Prime, accuracy is everything. This segment of Into High Country has been brought to you by Montana Canvas, hands down the finest wall tents ever made.
Now, this isn't your typical terrain that you think of when you think of hunting big bull elk. It's not big mountain peaks and meadows. You're kind of out in no man's land out here. Very wide open country, big, deep coulees and canyons, and just lots of places, nooks and crannies for these elk to hide. It's super fun. It gets into your blood, but it is a different style of hunting. With Dad's heart problems going on this year, it made it fairly difficult to really dig in deep and get too far away from places that were accessible by road or four-wheeler or things like that. So we had to, kind of kick it back a notch, which was different for me to have to kind of put it in idle and hunt at a different pace. But I knew it was for the right reasons, and I knew that we would eventually put something together. We ended up looking over several elk, but never really elk we could get to. The bulls would be down in some pocket of timber that, was just too hard for Dad to get down into, or they were on private land that we just couldn't obtain permission to. Just utilizing our onX maps, cruising along, the area's big. There's a lot of country that we can cover here. So we didn't want to dig into one spot too deep because there's, elk scattered throughout all this country. With Dad heading home, I decided to join Matt Seidel from onX Maps and see if we couldn't help him get the bull of a lifetime down on a special tag that he had drawn in central Montana. Not really knowing where to go, a good friend of mine, Clark Sprague, offered up Matt and I the opportunity to hunt a ranch that he had obtained permission on years ago.
I haven't seen it this morning, so maybe there could be something in here. It's kind of a hidden spot that nobody else can get to, so I'm just gonna keep poking around for the morning and see what we can find. Got about 45 minutes of light left, but finally just spotted a nice bull come out of the timber. He's all by himself, so looks like a good, mature, looks like a big 6-point, so we'll go and see if we can get a little closer. I think just stay up here. We got the wind right. He's just feeding real slow, just soaking up these last few minutes of sunlight, so we'll just ease up here, and I think we should have a pretty good chance, so give it a shot. I can see him. He's on the right side. If you look, you can see the yellow on the right side of those trees. You see him? Yeah. I can see him through the trees. I can see him through the wind swirl. Because he just took off. I don't think he scared him too much. He just kind of trotted over the hill. But I think the best thing is just to leave him hopefully he's out here in the morning in the sun, so we can get on him again. So that's a big bull.
Man, this season has just been one thing after the other. We just cannot seem to put it together.
This segment of Into High Country has been brought to you by Montana Canvas, hands down the finest wall tents ever made.
But, I don't know, it's tough to say. There's a lot of country right here. We got a long ways to walk. So
2 days before Dad and I arrived later in the season down there to hunt, Barrett and Ben encountered an absolute giant
right here.
in this area, like the bull of a lifetime. It was the perfect opportunity had Dad been there, but just as it goes, you know, when you have the tag, you don't see them, and when you don't have the tag, they stand there and look at you. So it, you know, even though we couldn't put it together on that bull, it gave us that kind of spark of encouragement, like, man, at any moment this could happen. We just have to put in our time, and eventually things will come together. On the very last day of big game season, the last day that my dad would be able to take a bull on this tag, we found 2 fresh bull tracks. I decided it was super cold. Dad's heart had really been worrying him a bunch, so I was just going to strap on my boots and see if I couldn't locate where maybe these bulls had bedded down, and see if we could get Dad closer somehow, some way, by a road or a four-wheeler or just something to not put that extra pressure on his heart.
My beard's a little froze up.
Lo and behold, right at the end of my walk, in one of the spots where I really least expected to see these bulls, I spotted this beam sticking out from behind this pine tree.
It's super cold.
And there they
Get
were.
up and look outside, but once
This
you strap on the boots,
was the moment we've been waiting for
start
all
moving,
year.
It's really not bad. You just got to keep moving and not stop. Keep your face warm, hands warm, and you're good, really. You hit him. Boom, he just went down. And you got the bigger of the 2 bulls too. There, the other one stepped out. He's a weird looking thing. And I got it on film.
All right. Oh, holy crap, is it cold.
That other bull just standing there.
Oh boy.
You definitely got the better of the 2.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I couldn't have laid there much longer. It is 12 below zero. I'm on flipping blood thinners. I freeze in the house. Jason walked down to the timber. We saw these tracks had cut the road. He walked down through the timber. I have no idea how he spotted that bull laying over there.
This segment of Into High Country has been brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage.
This bull was bedded right on top where he could see. I mean, you can see for miles here. And so he came down and got me, and we walked back up the bottom and up over the top, and Jason put his backpack down and I laid across it, and we laid there in the shade for, probably 10 minutes. I said, Jason, something's got to happen. I'm freezing stiff here. My toes are cold, and my hand was getting cold. My scope was starting to frost up. It's 13 below zero this morning, but an absolutely gorgeous morning. And this bull was bedded. I had no shot at him. And I said, you got to make something happen. So he started cow calling, chirping a little bit, and this bull stood up at 300 yards. We had ranged him at 300 yards. One shot, we could see the bull go behind the bush, and we could see him just tip over, and he didn't go 15 feet from where I hit him. And couldn't work out better. I mean, I'm sure we can get right to him, drag him off of this knob right down quarter mile to the road. So worked out beautiful, but we got to get going because it is flipping cold. So, but he's laying right here. Couldn't have worked out better. We've been looking and looking and looking.
It's kind of crazy how I felt walking up to this elk. It was almost like a walk back in time, so many years later, and still the same feeling of being there with my dad. And that appreciation for the hunt, and the appreciation for the animal, and everything that goes along with it. It was amazing to me how it felt so similar, like being a little kid there, alongside Dad, walking up to this elk and being there with him and having that appreciation for the hunt, a greater appreciation and a greater understanding so many years later.
I really couldn't be more happy. I mean, I wasn't real sure this was going to happen here because yesterday the weather was awful. It was so foggy yesterday morning you couldn't see 200 yards. Then the wind came up and then it started storming. This morning now the sun just shining bright, blue sky and fresh snow. It could be just a tad warmer though, but anyway, I couldn't be happier with this thing. Nice bull. First bull I've shot in a long time. Yeah, this bull didn't go. There's his bed right there. And when Jason was cow calling from over there, he stepped right out 10 feet. I shot, and he just made a little circle right here, and over he went. So, what a good deal. We still want to get him dressed out and go look for a mule deer, and we got a mule deer tag left. See what we can make happen then. I'm guessing everything's probably going to be out moving around this morning after that bad weather we've had. So, quite a deal.
I'm not so sure that Dad didn't make it happen this year for the same reasons he did when I was 12. Because of the experience, for everyone that was there, and for the first successful elk hunt that Dawson has ever been on. It made it so special to have my dad and my son and George, a great lifelong friend of ours. You know, it just, you couldn't make up a moment like this if you tried. All the pieces of the puzzle came together, and everyone had the time of their lives. It was the most special elk hunt I've ever been on in my life. Kind of like that first one. It's what started it. It's kind of come full circle, and it's hard to put into words for me, I guess.